Hey guys, it's Matt. This is definitely a TPS video. There's not much that's going to be shown here at all. It's a continuation of the general theme that hopefully came across in Saturday's The First Conversation Before a Failed Life. I'll just reiterate this now and maybe one or two more times in the future. I emphasize, and I did before that presentation, that was fiction. It was just to make the following point that's related to this video. Not that I believe there's going to be any sort of a life review or the ridiculous movie with Meryl Streep. What is it, Defending Your Life? I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe there's going to be some judge and weighing your heart on an Egyptian feather. I don't believe in none of that stuff. But the message that I wanted to get across in the first conversation after a failed life was basically the guide or the demon telling the failed character, the clues were all around you, sir. The clues were all around you, and you failed to notice. And this is just a continuation of that theme, mostly using movies. Well, most of this is going to be about movies, and something very similar to the term. I'll just continue to carry the phrase that Vanessa VA coined, the retrocausality language, which she has spent more of her time on songs and a spiritual message that can come through a song to you and potentially only to you when the songwriter, of course, had no idea what sort of message they were writing about. The songwriter could have been used as a conduit. The record company has no idea if a spiritual message can be derived from a real spiritual person like me or you. And the message from the first conversation after a failed life, or the clues are all around us. Well, you can do the same thing with movies and all forms of art. And this is just one little sliver in the whole pie chart, one little sliver of the clues that almost contractually this reality must give us. So, as usual, I reject we come in with a mind wipe. How are we supposed to know what we're supposed to do? Well, the proof's in the pudding. We are doing it now. We are seeing the clues. You guys aren't seeing any legitimate clues. You could find symbolism in the carving of a jack-o'-lantern. No, real people can sense, that your inner knowing. If I talk about a certain type of theme that is carried through many movies, and I have these 5 themes written out, you could say that the reason movies aren't any good today is because this not milk system almost realized, in my opinion, if real spiritual beings write these movies, these retrocausality or spiritual themes will come out, whether the artist or the writer intended it or not. That's what movies are so bad today, because they're probably forced to be generated on some sort of AI or something like that has no heart, that has no spiritual nature, and the movies show it. In the past, we've talked about the creeps having to do business in a certain way, almost like there's a contract here that was referenced in the fiction of the first conversation after a failed life. But we've noticed this, and we don't have a good way of describing it. We'd say, well, the creeps allow something that's very positive to come out initially. Then it seems like they're allowed to work to destroy it over time. Star Wars, of course, is the best example. 1977 Star Wars, A New Hope, uplifting, incredible spiritual messages, the force inside you. I mean, we just go on and on. Then work over time, very methodically, to destroy it. But that's all we could come up with. Well, the contract is, hey, they have to put it out, and when they put it out, it's good. Then if they're allowed to destroy it under the noses of everybody, then they're allowed to get away with it, and then the creeps go back and celebrate with themselves. And they, yay, we destroyed something else, but maybe it's something else. I mean, who knows? We don't know exactly what these creeps are, what sort of entity they are. Here's a whole nother possibility related to what is being discussed here, that maybe they didn't even realize the retrocausality languages and the spiritual language, or the message, that carrier message that comes through to real spiritual beings. Remember in the movie Contact, Kent, I guess his name was, he's blind, and they're listening to the numbers, the prime numbers, whoosh, 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 and he's like, there's something else here. Yeah, and you saw the carrier wave on top of the other wave. there's audio, there's video, there's another wave. And maybe the creeps had to call an emergency meeting and say, oh my God, these movies were allowing them to put out, we thought was just distraction, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz. There's gigantic spiritual messages that these people, higher selves, in some cases their conscious mind, but that's rare. That's just people like me and you, but maybe the unconscious mind of real people or the subconscious. Maybe they had to call an emergency meeting of creeps. And they got around the smoking room and they broke out their Peter Stuyvesants and they said, oh my gosh, we didn't realize these retrocausality messages are getting out everywhere. Oh shit, what do we do? Maybe they said. Well, if we let real people write and work on it, then it's going to come out. We can't snuff it out. You can't snuff it out? Well, what do we do? Well, we have Dr. Theopolis here. We have these AIs that will have to write the movies, but they're going to suck. But that's all we can't afford to have the beautiful spiritual messages carried forth anymore. Maybe at some point they didn't even know. And I don't know, okay? Of course, we can debate this some other time. But then they said the AI has to now write all movies and basically direct all movies because it has no heart. It has no soul. Then when real people see it, it'll suck. It'll suck rocks, of course. But then said we just did the best they can and come up with these stupid themes and tropes, whatever that word means. I can't stand that word. That word's tripe. Trope is tripe. Oh, the writers hate the fans. Oh, and then we'll get this whole group to parrot back. That's pretty much, in my opinion, a possibility as to what's going on. Maybe they didn't even know. But in the past, we thought, well, it's like a contract. They got to put it out pure, then they're allowed to destroy it. Or maybe it's both. It doesn't matter. Because, at least in the old stuff, the messages, not that we don't even need these messages anymore, but they're fun to look for. When you're down to your half page and you kind of see through the illusion, we don't need these clues anymore, but they're still fun to find. I mean, was at some point you got older and you still participated in the Easter egg hunt, and the family, you figured that, okay, grandma, as usual, going to put stuff them under the damn couch. You still participated in it. And, you saw through it. We see through everything. We don't need to do this, but it's fun. And the exercise we're going to do today will simply help to fine-tune your perception in seeing these sorts of messages that come through art, the way Vanessa definitely helped me out in seeing the messages that come through song. Theme number one, and the main theme in these movies that can be noticed over and over again, is the theme of generally going home. And not just talking about something blatant like the Disney movies that have the dog and the cat working with the mouse trying to get back home. I'm talking about even potentially absurd. Potentially. What is that golf movie? Happy Gilmore. He screams at the ball, go to your home. Why don't you just go home? There's a big, I guess he gets a big talk about this touchy-feely stuff before the putt by this new ager. I'm telling you, is even the ridiculous, you can't take it off the table as a potentially spiritual message. Okay, I know that is absurd to anybody new. The old guard's going, yeah, I could see that. We'll talk about that later. The second major theme we'll talk about today, see if we can find these commonalities in movies, is dropping baggage of some kind, or getting a monkey off your back, or a burden lifted. And again, not just literally. The key here in tuning your senses into where these messages may exist is seeing the metaphor of what may be presented in a movie, or the analogy. This is wacko to many people, but I've got to get you thinking about this in the right way. The Hunt for Red October. What was Captain Ramius trying to do? He was trying to get rid of the damn thing. He was trying to survive the whole process. And basically also the coming home philosophy also is there. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was just a huge albatross. He wanted to drop it, the baggage, get rid of it. Matt, you people are loons. You're saying that he wanted to turn the submarine over to the Americans, basically defect. He wanted that in some weird metaphorical way is some spirituality message. You people are out there like Pluto, loons. Okay, you're not going to agree with all my examples. It's just honing the skills, because these messages exist in way more places than even we understand. Thousands of more places. Next theme, we'll move through these a little bit more quickly. Rejecting something of the system, rejecting something of society for personal gain or slash spiritual gain. The last one is similar. It's overcoming something associated with this place, overcoming something associated with society, culture, reality, personally overcoming it or spiritually overcoming it. Not quite the same as the last one. I have a few more themes written down here that are a little bit different. I don't know if I'll get a chance to talk about them in this video or not. So you would just apply the numbers for each to each movie. Let's get the easy one and the big one out of the way. Going Home, The Wizard of Oz. The end scene. So you say number 1, Going Home theme applies to Wizard of Oz. Also, number 4, overcoming something associated with this place. This place, as presented by the Wizard of Oz, this place is Oz. This place is the illusion. Overcoming Oz, overcoming the illusion, realizing she had the power all along to go home. Now, guys, let me say one thing here. I'm not sure I've been clear about this. The old guard knows exactly what I'm talking about. But the theme of going home, we're talking about what we're here to do for ourselves in life upon the moment of death. That is kind of, we do the a lot here. What do you need to do in life to go home at the moment of death? Are you going to be, there's a million different permutations as presented through the truth community. You're going to be recycled back through the Saturn moon matrix. Tony, who gives me advice in certain areas, would say, have you done in your simultaneous incarnation here of your higher self, of which there are others going on at the same time, have you done all you needed to do here for your higher self to essentially go home? That's complicated. We won't get into that. But essentially stop playing this game anymore. Stop sending sequential incarnations into these sort of illusory reality systems. Going home, the exact opposite of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the exact opposite of the Buddhist philosophy. The Buddhist philosophy tells billions of people every year, you don't got a good chance of going home. Oh, there's a pretty damn good chance you're gonna come right back into a body after your little bardos, where you can have your donuts, coffee, and cream during your bardos. You're just coming right back. See that woman that just walked by? She's probably your mother, will be your mother. You're just coming right back, you poor sons of bitches. The opposite of that. We don't buy that. I can't speak for you, but I can speak for the first few rows of the old guard in the classroom, most of which who sleep through my lectures at this point. The spitballers in the back, all they do is try to hit me with spitballs. It's the group in the middle that pay attention. I can speak for you and say, we don't buy that horse shit that you're just destined to come back tens of thousands of times over, living in different parts of the slums of Delhi on either sides of the airport runway. We don't buy it. We're going home. So you go Wizard of Oz. I'll do 1-4. It's the biggest going home movie of all time. Number 4, overcoming associated with this place. With this illusory world that you and I are living in now is presented as Oz. She eventually was able to overcome it with some help, get by with a little help from her friends, and the witch came in and said, you had the power all along. You didn't have to run around and do all this horse shit with this Tin Man and all this bull. You just click your heels together, and you don't even need those damn shoes. You had the power all along to go home. But Matt, when you research this, and there seems to be tremendous merit to this research, Frank L. Baum or L. Frank Baum or L. Frank Baum Hubbard, I don't understand when people put little letters in front of a name. I don't understand that. I think it's L. Frank Baum. It don't matter. Mr. Baum. Oh, Matt, he wanted to make political messages, and he was very cunning, and he did it through children's books. He saw the absurdity of a fiat monetary system that backed by nothing, and he was for gold or silver as the basis of all money. And Dorothy Matt, don't you know? No, this is my first rodeo in truth. Don't you know, Matt, that Dorothy's slippers were really silver, and it was just a movie adaptation that made them ruby to potentially hide L. Frank Baum's incredible political message that he hid inside of a children's book? You know what? He probably did intend that message. That is the beauty, if you will, lack of a better word, for the beauty of the retrocausality language. Frank L. Baum didn't know what he was writing. Wait a second. You people are loons. Matt, if you're talking on behalf of your old guard, the people sleeping through the front of the classroom, you're saying that Frank L. Baum wrote a story that was adapted to film which carried the highest spiritual message of all time, and that motherfucker didn't even know what he was doing. Yes, it's possible he did, but it's very possible he did not and actually intended the message about real money and real money backed by hard currency and all the other political messages he put in The Wizard of Oz. That is not the main message to get out of it. And the beauty of it is it doesn't matter if he intended it or even knew about it for his entire life. It doesn't matter. And that is not lunacy. That is the highest level of this retrocausality language. When you get the ultimate spiritual message out of something that didn't even intend it. Oh, you think the society and this reality system has to leave clues? It absolutely leaves clues. Thousands of clues all around us. But we don't have a chance. We come in here with a mind wipe. We're fooled from day one, tricked. We don't have a chance. Okay. Well, either we're making this shit up and we're just seeing what we want to see. Yeah, that's right. That's what you guys are doing. You guys are out there like Pluto. You're seeing what you want. Hey, believe what you want. All right, let's go through movies a lot more quickly. We just had to use The Wizard of Oz as the big one for the introduction. Let's look at Shawshank. All the big ones carry these messages. They all do. Well, some are, don't for different reasons, but you'll see what I mean. Shawshank Redemption. Going home, of course. Of course. I mean, I know Zihuatanejo wasn't his home. I'm not saying it's all literal. It's going home spiritually. Andy had to crawl through a river of shit, which is reality itself. In your life, he came out clean on the other side to go home. Go to your home! To spiritually go where he needs to be. Whatever your religion or belief set is, to reunite with higher self. Dropping baggage, of course. Rejecting something of society, overcoming something associated with this place. And where the message doesn't lie with Andy, it lies with Red. I mean, it's all there with Shawshank. And the key part of this message is the person that wrote Shawshank Redemption. I don't know who it was. There's no doubt it's a real person. It wasn't a Dr. Theopolis or an NPC. And it's quite possible, or even likely, they just were writing a great story. They didn't even know the spiritual messages that they were writing down. Again, with a great movie, they usually carry 2 or 3 or all 4 of these. Let's do Star Wars very quickly, but one we've never looked at before. Of course, there are other incredible messages you can get through Star Wars, but this would be on my list looking down at my notes here, would be 3. Rejecting something of this society or something that the Not-Nelk system pushes forth as incredibly important, like tech. What did Luke do in the most important scene in the original Star Wars? Luke, do you have your navigation computer locked in, or your little... It was basically putting on an Elon Musk or a Zuckerberg a ER headset, or VR headset. And he said, screw this. Remember what he said? He said, screw this tech. This tech ain't going to work for me. And Luke, you don't have your positioning headset on, your Zuckerberg headset on for your final shot. He's like, I don't want it. And then use the Force. You have it within you. He heard Obi-Wan Kenobi's name. He rejected the tech. Okay, that's not just what Star Wars is about, but that's just one element. All these movies have these sorts of things. Cold Mountain with Jude Law. The entire 45 minutes of the movie is about going home. And also you have number 3, rejecting something of the society, something the Not-Nelk society or culture pushes as important. He's a deserter, not going to fight the ridiculous North versus the South battle anymore. Walks away, very similar to Dances with Wolves. Maybe the last hour, trying to get home, trying to get back to Cold Mountain. Not literally, well, in the movie literally, and maybe in the writer's intention literally. But what does that really mean? Matt, you and this old guard are a bunch of lunatics. I mean, anybody could watch the movie. It was very clearly just a love story. He's trying to get back to Ada Monroe. You'd try to get back to Ada Monroe, too, if that was your girlfriend up on Cold Mountain, considering what the other women up on Cold Mountain looked like. Most women born and bred on Cold Mountain were indistinguishable from men. You know that Lieutenant or Colonel Teague? That was a woman. Colonel Teague was a woman. That's what they looked like. They had armpit hair greater than Andre the Giant. If you were dating Miss Ada Monroe, you'd try to get back there too. You would have never gone in the first place. I hear you. But it's not, that's what's, when you do a spiritual message inside of art, it's layered. There's always going to be 2, 3, or even more layers. The first layer will always appeal to the popcorn cruncher. It's just a love story, you sons of bitches, and nothing more. You guys are out there. Like Pluto. Y'all need to talk to Mr. Joshua because you're seeing shit that isn't there. Okay, if it was just one movie, but when you observe this shit, for me, going back to, I wasn't observing this shit in 1977, but you can see the repeating themes going back beyond 1977, going back to the great movies from the 40s and 50s. It no longer becomes a coincidence when you have a certain sample size. The movie Gladiator, number 1, Going Home, absolutely. Overcoming something associated with this place. Rejecting something of society. Russell Crowe's Gladiator. Okay, was the similar themes in a way to Dances with Wolves. Not exactly, of course, but was a general. Lost the rank of general. Lost all of that life. Left all of that life behind, but became a better person. Walking the more spiritual path. Have to go through the trials, which is represented as the gladiatorial games in the Colosseum, very similar to Andy had to crawl through a river of shit to come out clean on the other side. But most of it was about going home, about will you believe you'll be reunited. Even the spiritual side was even blatant and right in your face. Will you be reunited with your wife and your child who they killed? And then the black guy who played the wizard in Shazam, he says to Russell Crowe, you will be reunited with them. You will go home, but not today. Not today. You have things to do here. You haven't quite crawled entirely through the river of shit, which is expressed again in Gladiator as these ridiculous gladiatorial games. So yeah, absolutely about going home. Off topic here, but I just thought about it. There's another theme to kind of look out for. There's hundreds more to look out for. But this theme where the king is powerless comes up to a degree in Gladiator. There's a lot of this where the movies or many forms of art present, there's another power here that you don't see, a power in the shadows, the way we see that prime ministers or presidents, puppets, can you say? Sure. So it gets back to James Earl Jones and even Coming to America. Who am I to change to do these things and change these laws? And his wife or something, you're the king. You're supposed to. And he's like, they're all powerless. It's in the, not Hamilton, it's John Adams, the HBO series from 10, 12 years ago. John Adams with that snarky little guy that went on his little wine tour and can't stand Merlot. He plays John Adams. Like, why are they making us move into the White House? It's under construction. I've talked about this before. Well, they move in, there's all these workers and slaves working on the White House and windows aren't even in. He's all complaining. Well, isn't he the president? I mean, it's a giveaway that you're not in power. They're showing you, even in that HBO series. And it happens to a degree in this Gladiator where, even this, was it not Commodus, Marcus Aurelius even says about making certain changes or, he kind of basically said, I just remember the scene where he's like, there's not much I can do about it. Well, aren't you the emperor? What? So, Matt, are you saying even going back to the Emperor of Rome, there was another power structure over on top? Yeah. Why would it be any different than today? Why would I believe they accurately recorded how many times Julius Caesar was stabbed and carried that artificially through time? What a bunch of horse shit. Sometimes it's not blatant about going home. The big one, maybe it's just at the end, like Man on Fire. He trades himself for, is it Lupita Ramos? And he said, where you go? You're going home. And she says, Creasy, where you going? He says, I'm going home too. I'm going home too, he says. I'm going to Blue Bayou. Whatever that Linda Ronstadt horse shit that he shared with little Peter Ramos. He had to overcome his. It's all analogy for life, the trials. He had to crawl through his river of shit to come out clean on the other side. He had his drinking problem and his suicidal thoughts. And, there's other themes that come in like self-sacrifice and very similar to, Jesus dying on the cross. And I mean, all that. Let's just try to keep it to these because I haven't thought about some of these other things and I probably couldn't interpret some of these other ones anyway. But I just remember the going home theme from the end of Man on Fire. Great movie with Denzel Washington. Spartacus, which Gladiator ripped off a ton of things from Spartacus. Even calling him the Spaniard is right from Spartacus. Blatant ripoff, but actually in a way a tribute to Spartacus. At some point, they just want to go home. We have to do a deal with the Silesian pirates, and they just want to be left alone. Get your Roman systems and your Roman legions, get your Lady Gagas, get them all away from us. We've got our own band. We just want to make our way to the sea, where we'll be screwed over by another not-nilk gang, the Silesian pirates. Of course, they're just continually harassed by a representation of the system and continuously screwed. And they are all crucified at the end. But they basically, for the last hour of the movie, they just want to go home and be left alone. That's like you and me, Matt. We just want to be left alone. But then the not-nilk is always getting in our business. Exactly. Not-nilk, if you're listening, I'm sure you are in real time. It's time to just leave some of us alone. Go bother someone else. The entire movie, Falling Down with Michael Douglas, is about him just wanting to go home. I think he says it 50 times. I just stop messing with me. I just want to go home. Leaves his car running on the freeway, just trying to go home. And I just realized people are probably throwing rubber duckies. This gives Matt the opportunity to imitate that skinhead voice again. It does. I can't wait to do it. The two guys come up to him in the park. He just wants to be left alone. The story of our lives. Hey, Essay, you need to pay a toll, man. It is not a great East LA, Sepulveda Boulevard, via Marisol off the 110 exit. I spent enough time down there. I should, Essay, you need to pay a toll, boy. I just want to be left alone. Get up from out of my business all the time, you not-nil creatures and minions and entities. And then the other guy, what you mean, man? We're the same. That wasn't as good as I've done in the past, but let's leave that one behind. The whole movie is about going home. I know it's weird because first you're supposed to like Michael Douglas, then at the end he's nasty and mean. They don't do a good job in that, and maybe they confuse it on purpose, but the same themes apply, and also a rejection of society. Had the job with the pencils in the pocket, and he just says enough. He just exits it. And he goes, maybe this is saying, hey, you take this path, you're going to look crazy. You may do some crazy things. You may actually go crazy if you have the balls to leave your car running on the freeway and say you just want to go home. That's kind of what we're doing. But let's not do or carry forth what Michael Douglas did in that movie. Let's go home in a little bit more dignified manner. All right, let's go through movies even more quickly, like Dances with Wolves. Just a no-brainer. Going home, rejecting the things of the society, even rejecting his name of John Dunbar for Dances with Wolves, completely transforming, dropping baggage. It has all of them, of course. There's no reason to revisit this again. The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise is an exact remake, for the most part, of Dances with Wolves, Last Samurai, except it takes place at a different time, with a different sort of setting. It's basically the exact same thing. Saving Private Ryan or Saving Ryan's Privates, same exact thing. It's about getting Private Ryan home, in a different way. Oblivion with Tom Cruise is initially about going home. What they think is a false home. You need to just do your work for a few more years or whatever down on. He doesn't know he's a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone. And then you'll be reunited with everybody up where they took everybody up. They're all with Elon Musk up on Mars or something. But then his real home is that place he goes to, that private place where he has an old record player and some grass grows. And, that's home. But it's not, again, we're talking about a spiritual message here, not a physical place. So It's possible I'm getting some of these wrong. Matt, there was no spiritual message in Oblivion. I hear you. Maybe there wasn't. I'm just saying they're repeating themes. And when themes repeat, there's a reason for it. The family man. I mean, you complete, which is, I think, very similar to Scrooge with Bill Murray. I mean, there's very few movies that present like somebody went off to just train horses, but the movie shows they really should be a Wall Street stockbroker or they really should be managing hedge fund companies. It's always the opposite way around when a movie is well done, saying, when you are too in the middle of the belly of the Notnilk whale, then you've missed out. The guy comes, John Cheadle, whatever, Don Cheadle. So I'm going to give you a glimpse of what your life could have been. I mean, not exactly what we're talking about here, a little bit different. The Notebook, I have written down here in a way, is about her coming home. Again, let's remind ourselves, we're not talking about literally here, coming back to the house he built. What does that potentially represent spiritually? As soon as she comes back, she says, everything with Lon was perfect. A perfect marriage to the perfect man. He's a perfect gentleman. We go to parties, all this stuff. But she says, I don't paint anymore. I'm losing. It's the middle of the Notnilk Beast system. Maybe Lon's an NPC, but he's a nice guy. She says, I don't paint anymore. I've lost by going down that route, which all my friends and family say is the perfect route and the perfect marriage with Lon. Lawn, like mow your lawn. I've lost myself. I don't paint anymore. So coming home, in this case, it's the house he built for her, but it's a very similar theme, in my opinion. Hashi. Oh my gosh, if you're an animal lover, you will not cry harder in a movie. Hashi, about the dog, and was the officer and a gentleman? What is his name? Richard Gere. This dog waits for the... I'm not going to tell you. If you haven't seen Hashi and you're an animal lover, you will not have a dry eye for the last 40 minutes of that movie. In a way, is about waiting for something to come home. But I don't know why I wrote it here. It's not quite what we're talking about here. One that's very appropriate, and if you're starting to kind of understand what I'm saying, you'll see what I'm saying pretty quickly, or if you've seen it in the last 20 years. Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart. Let me give you 1 minute or less if you're not familiar with it or you haven't seen it for a long time. This is one of the all-time classics. Casablanca is a city in Morocco. I guess it takes place during the beginning of World War II, and people are like expatriates or foreigners get trapped in Casablanca. They can't get the papers. I guess it's German controlled now. They cannot get papers to leave Morocco. So you have basically a wealthy type and they're trying to make it to Lisbon. Somehow if they can get to Lisbon, Portugal, then they can get back to New York City or back to London or wherever. But they're trapped. There's only so many that can get out. You need papers stamped in a certain way. So Humphrey Bogart has this Rick's Cafe, bar, restaurant, where all the wealthy class, they kind of mix, but they also do deals in the back room. And I'll trade this 18-karat diamond ring for your paperwork to get out of here, because only 2 people can leave a day on the plane, and only if approved by the Germans. So the entire movie is about wanting this group here stuck in this limbo land, wanting to go home. What is Casablanca, Morocco? How does it relate to reality itself, potentially? They're stuck there to a degree. They're trying to get home. Is it a stretch? I don't know. It is on its own, but not with hundreds of other examples that all present a similar theme, in my opinion. Right, let's finish the list of the going home. And this is just what I came up with, like 25 minutes, just off the top of my head, I did go through the list of the top 100 greatest movies and some others, but think about if you did this for a week or two, how many have the going home theme? 1,000 others? So I wrote E.T. down here because, I understand E.T.'s an alien, and I'm not going to get into some weird horseshit theories. Matt, don't you know E.T. represents the alien aspect of your higher self that's not hijacked to this plane of existence? No, I just wrote it down because it's a whole thing about going home. Rain Man with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman is about after he picks up Raymond, his brother, about the drive home. The whole movie is about getting home. Good Will Hunting is about going, all these interviews, all these things he should be doing with his life and his intelligence. And eventually, at the end, just got to go see about a girl driving the highway alone, basically going home. Theme is endless, and I probably went longer than I should here because we need to talk about some of the other themes that I wrote down here related to some movies. Here's one on the completely other side of the spectrum to positive spiritual messages that we take away from movies and other forms of art. There's one I wrote down here, and I wrote it as how messed up or effed up things get when it's all about embracing this system, not Nilk systems, its rewards, how messy everything gets. And there's just how many movies are like this. Let me give you an example. Snatch. Okay? It's a good, funny movie. It's like a Pulp Fiction light. Brad Pitt as the pikey or the gypsy. The whole movie is about trying to get this diamond of so many carats, and how many people die, and how many people are put in harm's way, and how many lives are ruined. And it's a good movie. It's definitely, I even like it more than Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction to me is way overrated. About 7 or 8 great scenes, the best, and then the rest of the movie, an hour or more, is just it's hard to watch. But you're gonna revolve. Look, what does the diamond represent? You're gonna revolve your entire life. That people get shot. It's just hey, that's what you get when you embrace not Nilk rewards or not Nilk systems. And there's so many different hybrids of this. I just thought of the diamond, the Titanic. I never make it to the end of that movie, but it's either the last scene or one of the last scenes. The old woman goes to the back of the ship, and she's got the damn diamond, whatever carats it is, the $10 million diamond, 50 carats. They call it like the heart of the sea or the heart of the ocean or the Little Mermaid under the sea. And she takes it off and like throws it in the ocean. And that says there's a lot of things that can be interpreted from that, a little bit different than what we're talking about here. I think people are supposed to make a relationship between, in my opinion, the Hope Diamond, the famous Hope Diamond that may be still at the Smithsonian institution, and this heart of the sea blue diamond from Titanic. Well, she's showing you the damn things. In one way, it's worthless. It's a Cecil Rhodes horse apple. Cecil Rhodes, who started for the Rothschilds, started this whole De Beers thing. I mean, how unnatural is that? If diamonds were so valuable, and we have this free market economy that we're all told we have, right? And didn't school teach us about that? Other companies would have got involved with diamonds other than De Beers. There's just one company that controls all. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Well, they're horse apples. Those things that Red was digging up. They were looking for Andy let's get Andy some rocks while he's in the solitary confinement. They said, that's a horse apple. He was digging outside with Red in May's one fine month to be working outside on outdoor detail. He found a diamond. They just threw it away. They didn't even want to give that to Andy. They were looking for alabaster and other shit so he could do his chess pieces. So she shows you this is basically supposed to be the Hope Diamond. It's worthless. That's the message at the end of Titanic. She throws that horse apple right in the water. There are a lot of, quote, great movies or considered great movies like The Godfather 1, 2, 3, Goodfellas, a lot of the mob movies where it's not going to give you some spiritual message about going home. Of course not. But you have to add to the list of the general themes. I mean, I added number 5 here. How effed up or messed up things can get when not Nilk rewards and systems and what this reality says is good, and the love of money or the 7 deadly sins, envy, pride, wealth. What happens to people when that's the path that's embraced? The opposite of the spiritual path. Goodfellas, half of them in the gang wars, half of them end up dead. Look at all the people that end up dead in The Godfather 1, 2, and 3. 3, he's still trying to become legitimate. He's trying to get away from all his mob connections, but they can never leave him behind. So he's continually, once he's been too far under the dragon's wing, Don Corleone has been too far, Michael Corleone, under the dragon's wing. He keeps being pulled back under. He even gives, is it 3, where he's trying to buy that Vatican company, something Mobiliare, or whatever, Mobiliari Donuts and Horse Shit. He gives like $10 million to each of his old partners. And he's basically like, get lost. I'm trying to go legit. And they're all pissed off and they're going to start a war with him. He's been too far under the dragon's wing. He can't get out. So theme 5, how many movies fit this mold? Every single mobster movie. I mean, there's thousands. So you have the category of how effed up things get for people if they're pursuing not Nilken system carrots and everything associated with getting ahead here, which includes, the whole underworld of mobsters and gaining power illegally or through Idi Amin tactics and things. Okay, that's still about gaining power. There's not a whole lot different than that, other than what this government says is criminal versus not criminal versus gaining power by taking companies over and then firing half the staff every time that Richard Gere with Pretty Woman takes over a company. He breaks it up and gets rid of half of the workforce, putting them out on the street. I mean, one is considered very admirable and one is considered what Don and Michael Corleone did very criminal, but they're not that much different at the end of the day. So then when those things, those ways of doing business are embraced, then you're too far under the dragon's wing. The theme is you can never get out. And that relates to the last potential theme I wrote down here, that in a way, the system really can't be overcome. Okay, the system itself, if the message in the movie is the true system, it can't be overcome if you try to take it on directly. The end of Braveheart comes to mind. It's like, okay, try to take it on and, ended up on a slab. I mean, there's a lot of the end of Gladiator. I mean, that the Roman system's still there. There's not a whole, look at Star Wars. I mean, after even considering all the horrible series that are now, whatever happened with Luke, whatever Death Stars they blew up, you go back to Star Wars and the new series or Andor or whatever, it's the same empire still there, still ticking away, still Timex that empire takes a licking and keeps on ticking. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of I don't know. This theme keeps you'd think there'd be a lot of movies where will the good group of rebels overcome the bad system, but what I'm saying is when the bad system really represents this not milk reality, if that's the takeaway from the movie, like Star Wars, it can't be overcome, is the message. Look at the end of Kingdom of Heaven. All the stuff he tried to do right, protect the innocent, protect the road, be a good knight. At the end of the day, he's just walked out defeated. He's got to turn over the whole Jerusalem to Saladin. And he says to Saladin, or whatever his name is, he says, what's Jerusalem worth? He's like, nothing. Everything. He's like, what'd I do all this for? So all this fighting and the message comes for nothing. If what is being taken on is the system itself. Okay? Sorry. I'm sure there's half the truthers out there. Oh, they're not the opposite. Winston asked me to explain more about worry about yourself. This relates to worry about yourself. You're here on your own path to make sure you can go home. But isn't my responsibility to make sure all my family can go home too? No, that's not worry about yourself. Worry about your WOI, about yourself. Make sure you go home. Secure your own oxygen on the plane that's going down before you try to secure oxygen to everybody else. Worry about yourself. You go to attack the system directly, it's exactly what it wants. So that's blasphemy to half the truth community. Matt, someday we'll triumph and all the Hillary Clintons will be marched off to jail. Sure. They dangle that. They want you to believe those things are capable. So what? Let's say it's possible and all of society can be reformed. You're still going to Target or Kmart tomorrow. You're still going to have the same GMO foods and the same stupid stuff on television. Like, what's going to change? You're here for yourself. It goes back to theme 1 from the movies we looked at. Make sure you are setting yourself up to go home. Matt, you've got to be here a little bit to help wake up your dad or not at all. I did think that 5 years ago. I thought a lot of things 5 years ago that I don't think today. Not at all. And if you think worry about yourself is selfish, you don't understand it, and you don't understand how reality works and the trick it's trying to lay down on all of us at the base level. Just to close it out before having a bit of fun with some of the movie posters that I'm looking at or I've been looking at while giving this presentation. Like top right, it says another Matt Damon rescue mission. I don't know what that is, but it's a funny title. So just let's summarize first in case anybody wants to get out of here until this really breaks down to ridiculous horse shit. Number one, I believe, and many of us now believe, that there are incredible spiritual messages in all forms of art, whether even the ridiculous, like a nursery rhyme or a cartoon. All forms of art can carry a spiritual message. When you recognize it, it's a message to you. It's likely it was completely not intended, of course, by the person that wrote the story or the director of the movie. If you went to talk to them and approach them in the back alley of the studio, you'd be arrested. But if they allowed you to approach the director, he or she wouldn't have a damn idea what you're talking about, in my opinion. But the messages are real, in my opinion, and they come and flow through all of art. Might not be a real theme or pattern in one movie, but when you see it 10 times or 20 times or 50 times, or can trace it back over movies throughout the course of your entire life, I believe in a way it's like it's talking to you. And I believe that's the way this reality is intended to work. It's something that must be here that the creeps can do nothing about. And contractually in some way, sometimes it seems like they have to facilitate the positive message. In the case of Dances with Wolves, for example, for some reason, the good stuff has to get out every so often, the original Star Wars, or if it gets out, then they're allowed to work to destroy it on the back end. However that mechanism works, we'll talk about some other time. It doesn't matter. If we get the message, we get the message. There's nothing they can do about it once we get it. So in pondering why movies, well, all forms of art are horrible today, but we'll stick to the movie theme here, why movies are so bad, one of the leading contenders for the reason that you've got to place on top of the table, I think, would have to be that they don't want these positive spiritual messages coming forth, which almost always happens, or happens hundreds or thousands of times, when a real person creates the art, writes it and directs it. It might come out. They don't want this anymore. It's almost like they're trying to stomp it out. So if you ask an AI of some kind, or Dr. Theopolis to write the movie, then the spiritual message can't come out because it's not derived. It's derived from a machine, or you understand why the Dr. Theopolis couldn't present the embedded spiritual message in the art that it's creating. So it might be forced to be putting out movies derived in this way to prevent the carrier wave spiritual message that's been in these things going back through time. And maybe they're just trying to get away with it the best they can. And that's why they, again, float all this bullshit out that the idiotic YouTube movie reviewers eat up about. Matt, you're going to do it one more. I'm going to do it one more time. The writers hate the fans. The writers don't appreciate the canon of the original source material. The writers aren't even that familiar with the original source material. They just want to push woke SJW agenda. That's Matt. That's where the idiot movie reviewers got their never-ending cue card array of how they have to make excuses for what is going on, and those excuses have to come from the toy box. They have to come from in between the reality bookends. If the reason that the movies and TV shows and everything else is so bad today, including music, is because they can't afford for any more spiritual messages to be coming along for the ride if they're created by real people, then that's the message that I'm pondering now. That's not something that's going to be highly promoted by YouTube. Assuming we're right about this, it's not going to be promoted at all. So unlike this channel, if you want to get a channel together and you want to go to 200,000 or 300,000 subscribers pretty quickly, and you can put two sentences together without a 30 or 40-second pause between sentences, all you need to do is trash Hollywood and trash the current shows and keep using the words woke, SJW as the reason. Just explain the bad trash art away with the reasons that they want you to put forth to explain it away, like the writers hate the fans and all the stuff associated with She-Hulk, then they'll promote your ass. And when you get 200,000 subs or whatever, you can start running ads, make decent money. I remind the people here, I've never run an ad. Never. Anybody say, I remember an ad or two on your channel. Yes, 4 or 5 years ago, they allowed me to use a 10-second clip from a movie. They would recognize the movie clip I'm using and slap an ad on it saying, I'm using copyrighted work. They slap an ad on it. They never sent me my 10 cents. They've put an ad on top when I've used a clip from a song, for example. I've never seen a penny of it, and I didn't want the ad to run. They slapped it on because I was using copyrighted material. Never ran an ad, now in almost 13 years. Guys, video's over. I just want to make fun of a few of these movie posters that I've been looking at, or just if anybody wants to stick around for a few more minutes to shoot the shit. But this is somewhat, you might find this somewhat interesting. In terms of, like, there are certain moments in my life that I remember, not where was I when JFK was shot, I wasn't born yet, but things like that. When did I really start to realize that all entities here are not the same, people are not the same, potentially the spiritual makeup of people is not the same, NPCs. If you were sitting next to Melvin P. on a bus, how weird that experience would be, just knowing he's not the same as you are, the creep, radiance, and aura that he would put off. It happened during a discussion with my friends about the movie The Martian, which goes back to 2015. It was a big movie, if you remember. For some reason, all my friends saw it. I don't know where I was with them. And they're talking about, many of them were talking about how wonderful The Martian was. And I saw it, and it was absolutely horrible. There is no more of a lifeless, soulless movie than The Martian. It doesn't make sense. It's absurd. Matt Damon by himself is unwatchable. I like him in Good Will Hunting. They're talking about, my friends were raving about this movie, and I was literally like, in 2015. Okay, this is 7 years ago. I wasn't nearly where I am now in terms of understanding how I believe the way the world works, but I'm going, who are these people? There's no possible, I mean, you might be like, I didn't lose my money. It was entertaining while I crunched my popcorn, but nobody's going to be raving about it. Somebody listening to this is probably raving about it. Like, what are you talking? The Martian was horrible, but my friends raved about it, and the point was, I'm like, who are these people? Like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. Okay, well, look, Matt, in the end of the day, movies can be subjective. Okay, I hear you. You shouldn't believe somebody's a different spiritual entity because they didn't like The Martian, Matt, you idiot. I hear you. I guess there were some other characteristics and things and signs they showed before that where I questioned kind of what they were. But the Joker up there, I see that top right. And that's another movie that just got incredible critical acclaim and was bowed down to even inside the truth community even as well. And it's a very interesting movie. It's overrated big time, and there should have been a lot of people complaining a lot about the Joker, but maybe it was more in our community. It was really highly respected, and it was good, okay? It was interesting. It was very good. But my beef with it was Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker shows no characteristics of ever being able to evolve his character into a mastermind super genius. Did people forget that? In other words, they shouldn't have called it the Joker. Am I missing something here? Is this the Joker that's related to Batman, right? Yeah, of course it's related to Batman. I think, Bruce Wayne's father was in the movie The Joker. So this is the villain, the mastermind villain. Well, they completely forgot all about that, because there's nothing in the movie The Joker that shows this could ever be a criminal mastermind. In no way does he ever prove to be incredibly smart or nothing. He doesn't. Everything that happens with the riots on the street, he did not plan in any way. It just kind of happened by him getting beaten up or abused on this TV show. In other words, even if they would have, just in a certain few scenes, inserted the ability of being a criminal mastermind, like remember in Rain Man, the toothpicks spill out on the floor, and he's like 248 toothpicks, 248 toothpicks. He's like, no, there's 250. There's 2 in the box, you jackass. There's even if the Joker would have been like somebody on the bus would have been trying to do a complex calculus or something. He leans over, being the dummy that he was, as Joaquin presented it. And Joaquin Phoenix did a good job, but he leans over and says the answer is -1 to the 10th power, whatever. Just like he could just do calculations, or I don't know. They presented this. They forgot that this is supposed to be an arch criminal mastermind, the equivalent of Lex Luthor in the Superman world. So you have to at least show him having certain signs that he would become a criminal super genius mastermind, as was clearly demonstrated by the Heath Ledger version of the Joker. Right off the bat, the planning of the heist, how everybody would take everybody else out, and the Joker driving away with all the money, right there, criminal mastermind. But nobody talked about it in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. There wasn't one thing. So you're going to make a movie, let's say, about Jesse Owens' or young life. I'm just picking anybody out of but then you never show him even running or jumping once. Horrible example, but you know what? They didn't do it. So why didn't they just make a movie about Joaquin Phoenix being a clown? Just he had a horrible, tough life, and it would have been the same movie. What does the Joker have to do with it? The Batman's arch rival that would eventually be played, because of the prequel, by Jack Nicholson. When did he become a criminal mastermind? And if somebody's saying, well, Matt, they're not just out to destroy the good superheroes, and they're not just out to destroy the good movies and series like Star Wars, they're out to destroy even the villains. Yeah, exactly. That's what the Joker, even though it was a good, interesting movie, it destroyed your image of the villain. And nobody talked about it. Nobody cared. It's like making a movie about Superman where the entire movie is him just washing dishes in the back of a Chinese restaurant. Doesn't display one super ability and everybody's just fine with it. But wasn't it a movie that was supposed to be about Superman? What? I didn't expect him in this sort of prequel, the Joker, to become an arch villain and be managing a gang of thousands of members by the end. But at least show me some signs that he's going to develop into an arch criminal mastermind. In other words, if they would have just put the movie out with Joaquin Phoenix and called it whatever, pick a name, Clown Boy, just Joaquin Phoenix, a very serious movie about he plays the role of Clown Boy, and they didn't mention anything about Batman or the Joker, didn't get you thinking in that way, it would have been the same movie. It wouldn't have been any different. It would have actually been better, because it wouldn't have ruined Cesar Romero, I guess, with Burt Ward. I mean, that was horrible. Horrible. That ruined it. But hey, what the hell? Anything prior to 1980 we'll give it a ridiculousness pass and move on. The movie bottom right, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with Leonardo DiCaprio, Da Vinci, Brad Pitt, and who else, I thought was one of the worst movies of all time. A movie I thought they made for themselves to reminisce about old Hollywood and what they experienced themselves in old Hollywood. And then they told everybody how great it was, just the way they told everybody how wonderful Hamilton is. So you go into Hamilton, even if you think deep down it sucks, you're going to have to convince yourself it's good, and then come back to around the water cooler and tell everybody at work how great it was, because God forbid anybody comes back to their work environment and says anything that's not great about Hamilton. It was similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in my opinion. So I was out with Tony, my friend, a few weeks ago, remember? Told you about our conversation about Voyager, and it came, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for example, came up, and it was so horrible. Another horrible Quentin Tarantino. He hasn't done anything since Pulp Fiction and Snatch. And Tony was like, again, I wonder, who are these people? Tony's like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was an incredible movie, he says. And we used to have the same taste. And I go, just like Matt Damon in 2015, where people talked about The Martian. I'm like, who are these people? Who are my friends? How could anybody? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood goes nowhere. It's soulless. I think I turned it off after about an hour and 45 minutes, and the they bring in the Charles Manson thing again. I mean, you're like, where is this going? What's the point of this? It's not great scene by scene like Pulp Fiction. It's trying to potentially be that, but it's just horrible. And I went away from. I really believe that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they spared no expense. Every single time a car goes around a curb or goes around the block, every other car parked along the side is what would be parked in 1970 something. It is, if you were a Hollywood Not Nilk insider, that you would love it because it's taking you back in time to the old Hollywood potentially that you knew. I think it's a movie made for them so they could reminisce to a degree about their old Hollywood. And then they told the masses how wonderful it was, and the masses went out to the theater expecting how wonderful it was, and they saw that when it was absolute horse shit. Anyway, sorry guys, and it's getting long. Let's wrap it up, and I'll see you soon.